I don't care what anybody says, the role of strategist in Marvel Rivals is by far the most important in the entire game. You're responsible for keeping your team alive, and your ultimate abilities can swing and save entire matches. Unfortunately, as a strategist, you might be making some big mistakes. So we're gonna go over 10 big mistakes you're making as a strategist and what you can do to fix them. All right, mistake number 1, you're not healing enough. You're just not healing enough. There are a lot of strategists out there who just wanna do some DPS, all right? But even still, even if you are just a good strategist, you might not be healing enough. On average, you should be getting like maybe 15 to 20K heals per half or per map. Take a look at the stats at the end of the match. Compare it to the other strategists. Did you heal as much as them? Did you heal more than them? If your buddy is a strategist too, you can make it a little internal competition, see who can heal more, but also go into competition with yourself. See if you can outdo yourself each match and if you can heal more than you did in the last game. Mistake number 2, you do not know when it is okay to let your team die. This is probably one of the biggest rookie mistakes of any strategist. You are chasing down your people who just do not want to be healed. They are just not in the position to be healed. Sometimes you have to let them die. You are there for the entire team. You cannot go chasing down every Spider-Man or Black Panther who's diving into their side of the map, every Hulk, anything like that. You need to know when it's okay to let them die. They're gonna find a health pack if they need to. Sometimes they're gonna die because they're out of position, and hopefully they learn from that mistake. But if you go and chase them down, you might die too, putting your entire team and the entire match in jeopardy. The Great Flats actually discusses this in one of these VOD reviews that he recently did.
I'm gonna teach you a little something very, very important. Very, very important in every hero shooter, so lock the fuck in. You can't help anyone if you're dead. Say it with me. You cannot help anyone if you're dead. And this is extremely important for supports, and it's extremely important for tanks. How often people try to do the correct thing and try to go heal a teammate who's in trouble, or try to go tank and block for somebody to save them and end up feeding will cost you every game. You have to learn to let them go. And if you're in trouble on a support, you need to take care of yourself first.
So you need to play this smart. Know when it's all right to, like, you know, change your position a little bit to heal somebody, but know when it's all right to just let that person die. Mistake number 3, you don't know when to get aggressive, all right? So a lot of this is a balancing act. You're gonna be looking at this and you're gonna be like, but Bootman, you just told me I should let my team die and not go chase them. That's okay. Sometimes you need to know when it's all right to get aggressive. This comes with experience. There's going to be times when someone on the other team is out of position, or you're being dove and they're just, you know, not getting the heals they should be. You need to know when it's time to go from healing mode to attack mode and finish off these kills. Sometimes you're just the person who can get the kill, and you have to go out of position a little bit, chase somebody down and take them out, especially if it's a healer, especially if it's a low health DPS. Just go out there and finish the frag, especially with people like Mantis or even Adam Warlock. Like, Mantis does a ton of damage, and you could take people out and then get back, get your heal on. Mistake number 4, you don't know when it's time to just start supporting the right individuals. What do I mean by that? There are certain times when you do need to follow someone on your team. Again, this is a balancing act. The reason I made mistake number 2, not letting your team die, is because that is just a fundamental. As you progress, as you get a little bit more advanced, you need to know when it is time to start following somebody to help them out. For example, I play a ton of Mantis, right? And one of her abilities is providing a damage amp, all right? So sometimes you need to follow your DPS who's popping off and give them a little bit extra damage. Sometimes you need to get out of position, you need to rely on your other support character to get the healing done while you go follow your Star-Lord or your Moon Knight or your Punisher or your Hello, and you pop some damage amps. Sometimes they're chasing somebody down, and if you can find the right cover to follow them and provide them with heals and damage amp so they can pop off and maybe take out a few people on the other team, you are just doing a phenomenal job. So again, you need to know when the time and place is for this, but this can make huge, huge swings in your matches. And mistake number 5, this is another big one that people make when they're new, and it's that you don't know when to use your ultimate. There are so many people who are just using their ultimate abilities all willy-nilly. Like most of the healers in this game have big defensive ults. Your Mantis, your Luna, even Invisible Woman now, right? And a lot of people they just put it out there. They're like, oh, my team took just a little bit of damage. Maybe I'll just pop my Luna ult and just heal everybody up. No, this is a mistake that I used to make all the time until I started reaching the higher ranks. It is so important to analyze what the other team has. Who on their team has a big offensive ult that you can counter with your ultimate. I was playing a game the other day where I was like a Luna or a Mantis, and there was a Psylocke on the other team. And I was like, hey, I'm gonna hold my ult until this Psylocke ults, right? And I swear to God, I was like, am I missing it? Am I not seeing when she's ulting? Like, what's going on? She held her ult just like way too long. But anyways, towards the end of the game, towards the end of that final fight, she popped her ult, and I was sitting on it the whole time. She was probably waiting for me to use my ult in a different fight, but she was the only one that had a huge ult that my ult could counter, so I held it just pretty much the entire match, and we ended up winning because I held it for that crucial moment, okay? This is really big, and I just cannot stress this enough. If you wanna up your game, you need to know when it's time to use your ultimate ability and save it for those big ones. Mistake number 6, this is the opposite. You hold your ultimate ability way too long. This is another mistake. This is something that I'm noticing when you're playing with, another healer on your team and you start communicating, you're like, hey, I'm gonna use my ult first, you use yours second, or vice versa. But there are people who are just holding their ults way too long. They're just waiting for like that perfect opportunity, right? And then they end up just never using their ultimate ability. Again, this kind of stuff comes with experience, knowing when it's time to save your ult and knowing when it's time to just use it. There are going to be certain occasions where, it's like about to be the end of the match and you guys got to get to the point and you got to just use your ult just to get in there and then hope people survive if the other team pops off one of those big ults. But just know, like, you need to use your ult. If like the match ends and your ultimate ability is still there, like something clearly went wrong. Start figuring out when it is time to use your ult and just don't hold it forever and ever and ever. Mistake number 7, and this is a very basic skill you need to learn. You need to learn heal priority, okay? This just comes down to like split-second decisions, all right? As a strategist, you're typically in the back, you have a whole field of view of the battlefield, and you need to know who to heal. Do you heal the tanks? Do you heal the DPS? All right? You need to be checking for a few different things. Like, for example, if one of your DPSs or one of your tanks, if they're being hard targeted by the other team, that person should be your priority. But do you always heal the tank? Do you want your tank just always getting healed? Well, you need to take into consideration their max health pool, all right? Their health pool in comparison to some of your DPSs who have less health. Maybe your tank could survive a little bit longer if you pop some heals on your DPS, all right? So you keep the DPS alive so they can get some kills, then you can go back to your tank because they were at half health, which is like pretty much the entire health pool of a DPS. You see what I'm saying? So you really need to work on who you're healing. Something you can do is go back and watch your replays, and this is great for like all these mistakes that you're making, right, is go back and say, okay, should I have been healing this person at this point or should I have been, healing somebody else, right? You can also check this and see, when you were using your ultimates and everything like that. Mistake number 8. You don't heal your team when they ult. What does this mean? Okay, let's say you have a Punisher who pops their ultimate ability. They're gonna get hard focused, all right? You need to be just shoving your heals on them so hard to keep them alive throughout the entire duration of their ult. That should be your priority. Same thing if you have like a Star-Lord on your team. You need to be popping your heals on them so they can make sure that they use their ult to like the fullest extent. So keep an eye out for when your team's ults are up. By the way, you should be pulling up the scoreboard because sometimes, like if you're playing like ranked solo, if you're not with a team, if you're with people who aren't communicating, you really need to be keeping an eye on the scoreboard. So because when you pull up the scoreboard, you can see who on your team has their ults, you can see what percentage they're at, see whose ults are coming up, and then you know, okay, this person might be using their ult super soon, so I need to focus my heals on them. Hopefully you're playing with people who actually communicate so you can do this, but anyways, make sure you're healing them. Like, they should be the priority. Like, I don't care if your tank is on the front lines just dying or whatever, like as long as they're distracted from like your person doing a huge DPS ult or whatever it is, make sure that they are staying alive so they can be healed throughout the entire duration and stay alive. If they die right after, whatever, that sucks. But if you're able to keep them alive throughout the entire duration of their ult, you did an amazing job. Mistake number 9, you stack your ultimate abilities, all right? This becomes a little bit harder when you're not communicating, or not you, because you're always communicating, right? But when your team isn't communicating. Like I said, like, let's say just, typical, you have a Mantis and a Luna on your team, you're the Mantis, all right? What you wanna do is say, hey, Luna, you ult first, I'll ult second. That should just be the order, right? If you guys are getting your ultimates at about the same time, you should be checking, you guys should be communicating, but what you don't wanna do is, for example, a Psylocke or whoever pops their ultimate ability and you both hit your ult at the same time. This will lose you matches. This will lose you matches so much. As you get higher in the ranks, it becomes less about like the aiming skill and everything. It comes down to these very, very, very minor decisions. And that's one of the reasons I'm making this video. But if you two do your ultimate at the same time, you guys are in trouble because, the Psylocke goes and pops her ult, you guys both ultimate, next thing you know, a Doctor Strange comes in and you guys are just completely vulnerable. So make sure you're communicating. If anything, just feel out like, your teammate, see if they're, using their ult very quickly, but also like some trust comes into play with this. Like I've played games where, I was communicating with the other strategists, but they were doing one of the mistakes we just talked about. They were holding their ult way too long. I was like, okay, you ult first, I'll ult second. And they were just holding it way too long. They weren't popping it when the other team was popping their ultimate abilities. So eventually what I ended up doing was saying, hey, I'll use mine first, you use yours second. Just because I noticed they were holding it way, way, way too long, and we started to swing the match a little bit so we weren't double stacking ults, because there were a few times when they did ult on time and I just didn't trust them to do so. So make sure you're communicating and watch out for this mistake. And the final mistake, you're picking the wrong strategist. All right, what does this mean? You really need to be looking at the landscape. You should have a few, strategists in your repertoire, all right, that you could play. You need to look at what the other team is playing. What heroes do they have on their team? What healers are really good for this situation? But also, team ups in this are very, very powerful. For example, if your teammate picks Adam Warlock, maybe you pick Mantis, all right? You get a free revive off that, or vice versa. If you have somebody playing Namor on your team, maybe you pick, you pick Luna, so you have that team up ability. If somebody for some reason is playing Mr. Fantastic, by the way, go watch my Mr. Fantastic guide, because I think he's very underrated. Not a lot of people are playing it. But anyways, maybe you pick Invisible Woman to give him that team up, all right? Don't just only have one strategist that you love playing, because another big part of this, another mistake, part of you picking the wrong strategist, stop picking Jeff. For the love of God, stop playing Jeff. I know you love to troll, I know you love to swallow people up, but Jeff, just for weeks now, ever since we've had stats, he is at the bottom of the list for win rate. He is not the healer to pick. If you're a Jeff main, you need to start learning other strategists, because Jeff is not good. And I know you're gonna come at me with some anecdotal nonsense and say, well, I had this one game. I don't care. The data doesn't lie. Jeff is the worst strategist in the game. If you wanna get better, stop picking Jeff. But overall, start strategizing and have different healers that you could pick based on what's happening in the game, based on what the other team has, and based on what your team has. All right, but anyways, those are 10 mistakes as well as some remedies. Let me know if you have any tips for fellow strategists out there down in the comments below. All right, but anyways, that's all I got for this video. If you're new, make sure you subscribe, ring that notification bell. I got a ton of Marvel Rivals content coming for you. All right, but other than that, have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.